Everybody, welcome to the session. I hope I'm audible loud and clear to all of you. And we're just continuing this wonderful group of sessions for all of you on Unacademy CAT-alyst, where we are talking about questions which QA precedents as the name goes, and the whole logic of QA precedents is that we are looking at giving you an advantage or a inside out discussion of past year papers. And I hope you can see me and you can hear me properly. Just trying to check on my other machine, and it's pretty audible, I guess. Right, so we'll start off. Just trying to check on my other machine. Yeah, so it's perfectly okay. So we'll start off, and what I'm doing in this group of sessions essentially is going to be a discussion of the CAT 2018 paper. And why I've chosen to start with the CAT 2018 paper is because of the fact that if you look at the CAT 2018 paper, it's supposed to be one of the toughest over the last 10 years. And yeah, good afternoon, Arpit. Welcome to the session. It's supposed to be one of the toughest in the last 10 years, and it's got a lot of value in terms of telling us what we should be doing for developing our strategy for QA prep. And if you look at the last few years, the way I typically tell people to organize your preparation is essentially going to be basically built around the blocks that are there in my book. So if I look at if I talk about the various blocks, block 1 in my book is the chapters of number systems and progressions. I'm talking about the quants area, and maybe I will also do a session of past year's data interpretation here on Unacademy CAT-alyst. So number system progressions is one part of your course of what you need to work on for doing your for doing your preparation. And then the second and third area is the entire arithmetic area. So when you talk about arithmetic, your breakup of arithmetic essentially is all the chapters starting from averages, alligation, percentage, ratio proportion, time and work, time speed distance, and also the two additional chapters of interests and profit and loss, which are essentially applications of the percentage chapter. So these two chapters also come into the picture. So this is arithmetic. Then we have geometry, the geometry area, which I call as block 4 in my books. So geometry consists of geometry, mensuration, and coordinate geometry. And then we have block 5, which is the algebra part, 5 and 6, where 5 is more of the higher maths part, where we talk about functions, equations, which includes quadratic equations, and inequalities, and logs. And the sixth part of your portion is permutation combination and probability, block 6, which is permutation combination, probability, and set theory. Now, if you look at the last few years of the exam, especially 17, 18, 19 को अगर तुम closely देखते हो, you will realize that these 3 years, the majority of the questions, a high number of questions has come from here. So on an average between 12 to 15 questions per year has come from the arithmetic part. So if you are looking at strategy for preparation, now of course I am the first person to tell you that just because 17, 18, 19 में ऐसा हुआ, कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है कि 20 में ऐसा होगा, because CAT has this tendency of doing this in the past. So if you look at previous years experiences of people who took CAT, you will see that बहुत बार क्या होता है कि people start saying कि अब ऐसा आजकल CAT में ऐसा नहीं होता है. So the moment you start getting too comfortable with a pattern in CAT, it will throw you off, and hence एक जनरल प्रिपरेशन लॉजिक हो गया लोगों का कि नंबर सिस्टम्स और प्रोग्रेशंस, जो कि पहले बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर थे, उसको ज़्यादा पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं बिकॉज आजकल क्वेश्चंस कम आ रहे हैं. तो लास्ट 3 years का पैटर्न देखोगे तो बेसिकली 3 to 5 क्वेश्चन ही है इसमें. और अगर प्रिपरेशन का स्ट्रक्चर देखोगे तो द प्रिपरेशन स्ट्रक्चर रिक्वायर्ड हियर, the time required for this is almost equal to the time required for this. So based on that precedent, if you decide कि I should only focus on arithmetic, maybe CAT 20 will throw you off. CAT has that tendency. So what do I recommend? Definitely arithmetic has to be done for depth. I mean, till what depth do you want to do arithmetic? You should do arithmetic deeper, so it's not, I mean, एक हो जाता है फर्स्ट लेवल अंडरस्टैंडिंग, दूसरा हो जाता है सेकंड लेवल अंडरस्टैंडिंग, और थर्ड हो जाता है थर्ड लेवल अंडरस्टैंडिंग वेयर यू आर एब्सोल्युटली इनसाइड आउट विद दैट टॉपिक. सो आई वुड सजेस्ट दैट अरिथमेटिक एटलीस्ट सेकंड लेवल अंडरस्टैंडिंग तक तुमको पहुंचना चाहिए. Right, maybe some chapters you can just do first level understanding in some areas, right? So for example, coordinate geometry, just the first level understanding is okay. Logs also, although logs आजकल बहुत questions आ रहे हैं, but most of those questions are normally of the first level only, so that can do. Probability you can do if you are looking for selective study, कि you can't do all the 18 chapters excellently. So which are the areas in which you can be a little bit less in terms of your depth of working. So ये 4 chapters हैं जिसमें तुम कर सकते हो ऐसा. But ideally anything else if you do, you are putting yourself at risk. अगर किसी और चैप्टर में तुम अंडरडू कर रहे हो प्रिपरेशन को, तो खुद को रिस्क पे डाल रहे हो, राइट? सो व्हाट CAT 18, जैसे CAT 18 में क्या हुआ, जैसे मैं दिखाने वाला हूँ तुम लोग को आज के सेशन में भी और आगे के सेशन में भी इस पार्ट ऑफ द कोर्स में. CAT 18 में क्या हुआ कि बहुत लोग लॉग्स पढ़ के नहीं गए थे और लॉग्स पे 4 क्वेश्चन दे दिए, तो क्या हो गया, 34 में से 30 क्वेश्चन बच गए. You left with only 30 questions to solve because you did not even know the theorems of logs and you did not know any of the and logs is a very very formula oriented chapter. So if you have not studied because questions नहीं आ रहे थे उसके पहले, तो ये 4 क्वेश्चन छूट गए सीधा. तो तुम पेपर में 30 से सॉल्व कर रहे हो, तो 30 जब पेपर में 34 के बदले 30 क्वेश्चन हो जाते हैं बिकॉज 4 क्वेश्चन तो ऐसे चैप्टर के हैं विच यू हैव नॉट स्टडीड. तो pressure goes up drastically if you're trying to solve 22 questions, let's say, out of 34. This allows you to leave every third question. But if you're solving 22 questions out of 30, you are on much more on edge because you can only leave 1 in 4 questions. So you have to get 3 questions right before you have a chance to leave a question. So ऐसे देखने में लगता है कि 4 क्वेश्चन नहीं आया तो क्या है, जैसे भी 34 क्वेश्चन में से सब तो नहीं सॉल्व करने वाले, लेकिन what it does is basically it increases the pressure on the other questions, drastically increase कर देता है pressure on the other questions. And as they did in CAT 18, what they did to do a double whammy on people was that they increased the difficulty level of the arithmetic drastically. So जिन्होंने ये 12-15 क्वेश्चन बैंक करके गए थे कि इसमें 10 प्लस तो हो ही जाएगा, they were struggling to get through those questions. तो अगर इसमें ये 22 में से 10 का टारगेट था कि 10 हो जाएगा यहाँ से, और इसमें से 6 ही हो रहे हैं बिकॉज द अदर 6 आर वेरी टफ, तो इफेक्टिवली क्या हो गया, तुम 4 क्वेश्चन माइनस यहाँ पे हो गए और 4 क्वेश्चन माइनस यहाँ पे हो गए. तो बाकी 26 क्वेश्चन में से 26 क्वेश्चन में से यू आर सपोज टू डू 22 if you want to retain the 22 ka attempts. So this is the problem that happened for a lot of people in this exam. So that's one of the reasons why I don't typically advise selective study. लेकिन अगर selective study करना ही है तो ये जो chapters I've marked in red, not the arithmetic chapters, but the other single chapters I've marked in red, उनको तुम maybe you can just do 1 3 to 5 hour study session. कोऑर्डिनेट ज्योमेट्री का फॉर्मूलेस देख लो, थियरम्स देख लो, 15-20 क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर लो, इनफ. लॉग्स का फॉर्मूलेस देख लो, थियरम्स देख लो, 50 क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर लो, इनफ. एट द लेवल ऑफ डिफिकल्टी 1 ऑल्सो. एंड ऑब्वियसली सब चैप्टर का प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन तो देखोगे, तो उसमें तुम्हारा ऑटोमेटिकली ये एस्पेक्ट कवर हो जाएगा कि यू विल हैव एंड प्लस एनी मॉक टेस्ट में क्वेश्चन जो आएंगे उनको तो देखोगे तो तुम्हारा सेफ्टी नेट बन जाएगा उन चैप्टर्स का, राइट. But the other chapters, I mean, sometimes people also keep permutation combination for the background. कि चलो इसको सिर्फ एक लेवल तक कर लेते हैं, अगर देखा हुआ क्वेश्चन आ जाएगा तो सॉल्व कर लेंगे. तो you can do that with not much risk because permutation combination का past history has been a maximum of 2-3 maybe 2 questions except CAT 2008 जब 4 क्वेश्चन आ गए थे permutation combination पे. So this is what your structuring has to be in terms of your prep strategy. So the remaining strategy now, we'll try to derive out of the questions. So I want you to look at this first question here and try to solve this on your own. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do this, and this is an hour-long session with you guys. So this is the starting point, first session, first this thing. So if you look at this question, this is a question based on series basically, and since you are talking about the sum of this series, and the series is 7 into 11 plus 11 into 15 and this goes up to 95 into 99. So in this situation, essentially the mathematical approach of this is that you first have to understand कि this term, for the nth term, this value is represented by n is equal to 4n plus 3. And this value is represented by 4n plus 7. And if you put n equals 1 in both of these, you will respectively get the first term of this. So first term of this series is essentially 4n plus 3 into 4n plus 7. And then if you put n as 2 in this, you will realize that the 11 into 15 term will get created, right? And the last term here is essentially going to be the 23rd term of this series. That's what you need to recognize. So the mathematical approach to this question is going to be that you have to do a summation of the series 4n plus 3 into 4n plus 7 for n is equal to 1 to 23. Now whether you want to do it this way or not, that's a different matter. पहले mathematical approach देख लो इसका क्या है. You should know the mathematical approach. Even if you are going to depend on shortcuts, you should know the mathematical approach for all kinds of questions that have been there in CAT, because that actually improves the quality of your shortcuts. So this becomes 16n square plus 40n plus 21 for n is equal to 1 to 23. Right? और जब ये करोगे, when you do this, you have to basically then find the summation of 3 different terms. So अगर इसका summation निकालोगे, you will realize that this is three different terms. Summation 1 to 23, 16n square plus summation 1 to 23, 40n plus summation 1 to 23, 21. So when you end up doing this, what will happen is you can actually take the 16 common outside, and this will be 16, and the sum of 1 to n terms of n square is basically n into n plus 1 into 2n plus 1. So 16 times 23 into 24 into 27 divided by 6 plus 40 times n into n plus 1. So 23 into 24 n into n plus 1 by 2. That's the formula for summation of 1 to n. Summation of 1 to n of n is basically n into n plus 1 by 2. That's what we're using here. So this will become that, divide by 2, and the third summation of course will be 21 plus 21 plus 21 23 times. So this would be the answer. So if you want to calculate this, then you can take 23 common outside, but as you can see, this is quite messy, and it's a moot point whether you should do this question like this. It's a moot point whether you should do this question like this, because if you do it like this, what will happen is you are going to take a lot of time to do this, and of course the chances of making a mistake during this process is very high. You're trying to solve this question within a minute to 2 inside the CAT. It's not necessary that this is the first question that you come across. पहला दूसरा तीसरा क्वेश्चन अगर होगा भी तो उस टाइम जो थोड़ा ज़्यादा रहता है, you've got that. So how did I solve this in the exam? And I had a 99.99 percentile in this exam. What I did was did none of this. 7 into 11 plus 11 into 15. I used my calculations. I knew that this is the series up to 95 into 99. So what I did was 7 11 is 77 plus 165, that's 242, plus 285, that's 527. So first 3 terms I did it mentally, and then I put it on the calculator, and I knew that on the calculator, suppose I open my on-screen calculator here. Let's say I open my on-screen calculator here. So on the calculator I realized that even if I start just with 7 into 11, I just have to make sure that I keep doing this without any errors. So see this, 7 into 11 plus 11 into 15 plus 15 into 19. As far as you know how the calculation works, you have got just 23 calculations with a plus every time, and each calculation will take you barely 5-7 seconds, 5 seconds maybe, not even 5 seconds. I mean, how much time does it take? I mean, if you actually look at it, how much time does it take? If you look at 7 into 11, It barely takes, and this is an all-screen calculator. I'm doing it with the mouse. I don't have this thing. So barely 2-3 seconds per calculation. And you know that if you, as far as you do this correctly on the calculator, you'll get your answer. So CAT is a lot about, while you should know the mathematical process, CAT is a lot about using your mind and your brain at that point. So the way I decided this question inside the CAT was that चलो बेटा आराम कर लो थोड़ा सा, कैलकुलेटर पे डाल दो, अपने माइंड को 1 मिनट सुला दो, give your mind 1 minute of rest, and just the calculator is going to give you the right answer on this. ठीक है, if this was going up to 995 and 999, so I could not have done that, right? But if it is going only to 23 terms, it's you have to be smart. Basically, you have to be smart with what you are doing. And I think the answer to this turns out to be 80,707, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, option A is the right answer. Right? So why so much stress? Why so much writing? And if you look through, even the calculation that we reached when we did it through the mathematical approach, that calculation also required 3 large calculations. When we did it through the mathematical approach, the calculations were 16 into 23 into 24 into 27 by 6 plus 40 into 23 into 24 by 2 plus 21 into 23. The calculations were quite elongated, even if you look at that system. So ऐसा कुछ नहीं था कि यहाँ पे तुमको कैलकुलेटर की ज़रूरत नहीं थी और तुम बहुत जल्दी कर लेते इसको. तो अगर उसका कैलकुलेटर टाइम अराउंड 80 सेकेंड्स है, तो इसका कैलकुलेटर टाइम भी 20 सेकेंड्स तो है ना. So basically 60 seconds of calculator time extra, and your mind is completely relaxed. You're not writing anything. So when the CAT gives you a gift like this, please make sure that you take the gift. Right? Make sure that you take the gift. Any 4th standard kid can get this right on a calculator. So why should I bother with all that process in this question? Moot point. And as I said, if I was going to 995 into 999, if I have to do 70 calculations, then I should know the back-end process. I'm never a proponent of saying that I should not know the back-end process. मेरे को back-end process पता रहना चाहिए. I should know what the back-end process is, what the mathematical process is. But should I use it every time? Moot point. Not always. Be smart about what you are doing. Look at the second question now. Now this question is clearly from number systems, और जो लोग तुमको बता रहे हैं कि नंबर सिस्टम प्रोग्रेशन नहीं आ रहा है कैट में, देख लो. पहला क्वेश्चन प्रोग्रेशन चैप्टर से है, दूसरा क्वेश्चन नंबर सिस्टम चैप्टर से है. And we just look at 2 questions out of 34 of the CAT-18 paper, and both these have come from there. So don't make that mistake of part study. And I would love it if in these sessions I can get some questions also from you guys. If you can bring in some questions, some queries of yours. So Arpit and everybody else who's attending this, I can't see your names on YouTube, but if you want to come in and discuss something or ask me something about your strategy, etc., I would be more than happy to take those detours to answer those questions. So this question, how many 2-digit numbers with a non-zero digit in the units place? Makes sense. First, don't read ahead. Try to make sense of this point. How many 2-digit numbers with a non-zero digit in the units place? 2-digit numbers with a non-zero digit in the units place are there, which are more than thrice the number formed by interchanging the position of its digits. So that means if I have got AB, where B is not equal to 0, and I interchange the positions of the digits to BA, then 3 times BA should be less than AB. The number should be more than thrice the number formed by interchanging the digits. So if my original number is AB, my new number becomes BA, interchanging the digits, and the original number should be more than 3 times the new number. So I can start trying to think of what I should have. So if I think logically, and I just apply logic without any mathematics to this, if I start thinking logically, and I'll show you a couple of ways of doing this, I realize that the value of B should be quite small, because if B is large, so for example I do a small check, if B is large, I make a 38 converting back to an 83, तो ये into 3 वाला कंडीशन, एक तो 83 itself is larger than 38, क्वेश्चन सेज कि नया नंबर जो है उसको into 3 करो तो भी इससे छोटा होना चाहिए, ये कंडीशन तो बहुत दूर दूर से सेटिस्फाई नहीं होने वाला है. So I realize that the value of B has to be small, and it is non-zero, so it has to be maybe 1, 2, 3 kind of number, right? In my mental logic, I can even work out that if I try to use a 4 here, this number becomes something in the 40s. If I use a number something 4, this number will become something in the 40s, and this into 3 is going to give me more than 100. So this value will become larger than this value. It's the opposite. And the question is very clear. We're looking for 2-digit numbers which are more than thrice the number formed by interchanging the position of the digits. So I realize that the value of B can only be 1, 2, 3, and this is plain common sense logic. No mathematics involved in this. Right? So if I start thinking in the tens, my thinking will be 11 inverts back to 11. This does not have that relationship. 12 becomes 21. This does not have the relationship. So tens में कुछ नहीं आने वाला है. And then I realize that if I keep this digit small, तो इसका into 3 करने से I'm in the wrong direction. So I have to make this digit large. So rather than starting from the tens तो start कर दिया मैंने, लेकिन now rather than going to the 20s, I will start from the 90s. And then I start finding the numbers. 91 inverts back to 19, 92 inverts back to 29, and both these have this property that if you triple the inverted numbers, the reverse number, the value is still smaller than the original number. 93 does not have this property, so I come to the 80s. 81 will have this property with 18. 82 will not have this property with 28, because 28 into 3 does not give me 82. Yeah, Viral, you have got a question? So this is the third number. Then I go to the 70s, 71, 17, and if 82, 28 did not give me the solution, 72, 17, 27 is also not going to give me an answer here. So I can just start ignoring the 2's now, and I can just focus on the 1's. So 71, 17, and then in the 60s, 61, 16 gives me a value like this. In the 50s, 51, 15 gives me a value. In the 40s, 41, 14 does not give me that reversal. And we had anyway worked out, no, we have not worked out this. We worked out that B cannot be 14, so B can be 1, 4. So B can be 1, तो ये 41 check करना पड़ेगा. और 41 पे नहीं हो रहा है तो 31 पे obviously नहीं होगा. And obviously you can check 42, 24, etc. So you can see that there are basically 6 values here. Option B is right. There are basically 6 values here, and option B is right. right? So this is the completely numerical approach to solve this. Just a commonsensical approach, taking the logic into your mind, taking it through a couple of revolutions in your mind till you grasp on to what kind of numbers you're looking for. Now, if you want to do a couple of steps of algebra, you can do that here. And the algebraic process will be something like this. If the original number is AB, so in algebra, a two-digit number AB is mathematically, for equation, it is written as 10A plus B. And if the reverse number is BA, so in algebra, the reverse number is written as 10B plus A. So what I'm told here as an inequality is 3 times 10B plus A has to be greater than 10A plus B. And that means 10A plus B has to be greater than 30B plus 3A. So 7A has to be greater than 29B. This becomes the solution, and then you realize that with A as 5, I can have the values of B, A as 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. I can have the values for each of this. I can have the value of B as 1, and for B, A is equal to 9 also, I can also have the value of B as 2. So this is the other way to do this question, that with each of these 5 values, that means B can be 1, that means 51, 61, 71, 81, 91, these 5 numbers. And then with A as 9, you can also have B as 2, because with A as 9 here, this left hand side becomes 63, and 63 can be greater than 58. And both these processes, which one should you use? I think you should know both these processes in this question, because in this question both were quite good and both were pretty quick. But of course, for the first one I showed you, you will have to have a numerical feel of what's happening, and you'll be able to you have to have that mindset of being able to churn these numbers in your mind and try to gravitate to what number you're looking for. But the second one is more assured. Maybe a lot of you will like this process more, because in this you are more in control of the steps at least. But on the flip side, this will take more writing. The writing involved will be higher, so the time of writing will kind of balance out the time that you save in getting the final answers here. So I would think that both of these processes will take the same time more or less, but you should know both these processes. And I always talk about this, that when you talk about CAT questions, एक approach होता है, you start with algebra and keep solving the algebra till you get to the algebraic answer. This is approach 1. दूसरा approach होता है that you start with a couple of steps of algebra and then you move to the numbers, numerical logic, and you try to fit numbers into the situation. This is the approach used in this solution. We have done a couple of steps of algebra, mutated the question to the point where it has become easier for us to understand, and based on that mutation we have come back to the numbers. Once you have mutated the question to this point, it's easy to check the numbers, and you can do it this way. And the third process, of course, is where you solve a question completely numerically. That's the other approach I had shown you in this question. Which one should you use? Be ready to use both of this. CAT these days is requiring you to do both of these. So if you're only an option-based solver, CAT will catch hold of you and not allow you to move beyond a certain point. If you're only an algebraic solver, you will be too slow. You might be able to solve all the questions, but you'll be too slow. So be ready for both these. Don't be only a numerical solver also, And definitely don't be an algebraic solver, but as I said, you should know the algebraic process, how it goes through. Because only if you know the algebraic process will you get the vision in between each point where I can leave the solution or the solving part. Right? Now this is another interesting question. The smallest integer n such that n cube, and these are all repetitive kind of questions. ये सब तरह के question, ये तीनों तरह के question जो हैं, whether you're talking about this or this or this, each of these kind of questions has been asked multiple times in the CAT, and you will see that there's a lot of repetition in the logics that CAT gives you. And that's why your process of preparation should be such that you define a question bank which you are betting upon. You can use my book, or you can use any other question bank that you like to use. Define a question bank that you would like to bet upon, and once you define that question bank, you have to go through multiple rounds of solving that question bank. It should not be one round, because one round what will happen is you will start forgetting after once you solve one round. Suppose you solve something in June and then you are going in November for the exam, you will not remember that process. So you should go through multiple rounds, because what happens in multiple rounds of the same question bank is that you start seeing patterns. You start seeing similarities between different situations, and then you start realizing that that different questions are asking you the same thing. And once you start seeing patterns in your practice sets, you will start seeing patterns in the actual exam questions also. And that's when you'll see patterns in the CAT, and the CAT will become an easy exam for you. So let's look at this third question. This question is n cube minus 11n square plus 32n minus 28 is greater than 0. Now if I apply my common sense logic to this, there is a logic of a cubic equation, that if there is a cubic equation ax cube plus bx square plus cx plus d. Now I'll go to show you three processes for this question. One is the algebra approach, where you go all through algebra with maybe last step of numerical. The second is two steps algebra. Second is numerical completely. And I'll also show you the two steps algebra and then the numerical approach to this question. I'll show you all the three approaches in this question. So if I'm doing this question, there's this theorem formula that for a cubic equation, I guess most of you know this. There are three roots for a cubic equation. Let's call them R1, R2, R3. So the sum of the roots R1 plus R2 plus R3 is equal to minus B upon A. The pairwise product of the roots is R1 R2 plus R1 R3 plus R2 R3, and this is given by C upon A. And these are similar to what you have in quadratic equations, these formulas. And the product of the roots R1, R2, R3 is minus D upon A. So this is the three part formula, or the three formulas with respect to these cubic equations for the roots. So rather than looking at this as an inequality, if I think of this as a cubic equation, the left hand side at least, I'll realize that the sum of the roots R1 plus R2 plus R3 here is minus B by A, which is 11. The pairwise product of the roots R1 R2 plus R2 R3 plus R1 R3 is equal to 32, and the product of the roots minus d by a, which means 28. So I can try to think of three numbers. If I think about the roots as integers, I can think of three numbers that satisfy this. And if you do a little bit of trial and error, three numbers whose product is 28 first of all, and you think of 7, 2, 2, you get an integral split of the three roots, because 7 plus 2 plus 2 is also 11, and 7 into 2 plus 7 into 2 plus 2 into 2 is also 32. So you have a three-part structure here which works perfectly in terms of your of all the three areas. But one of the problems of doing this in cubic equations is, what if there's a non-integral root? What if my roots were let's say, I mean यहाँ तो ठीक है, यहाँ पे आ गया, but suppose मेरा सब product of roots 28 है. So what if my roots were 7 and 3 by 4, and let's say that makes it 21 by 4 and x, so that this becomes 28. So it's possible to have a value of x, right? 16 by 3. So there's a possibility for the value of x. So ऐसे केस में कैसे ट्रेस करोगे? ये तीनों नंबर तुमको मिल भी जाता है. It's difficult. So this is not a guaranteed approach for in cubic equations to find the roots. So anyway, यहाँ पे तो मिल गया इस question में. So we realize that the roots are 2, 2 and 7, 2, 7, 7. And because the first term n cube has a coefficient of 1, you can simply write the equation on the left hand side as n by 2 square into n minus 7 greater than 0. And from this mathematical approach, as I said, this is mostly algebraic, this question. So from this mathematical approach, then you can realize that if you go on the number line for n and you try to see when the question is when the smallest integer, when this is greater than 0. So you realize that if you go to any number less than 7, now this is always a positive quantity or 0, and this remains negative all the way till n equals 7. It remains negative or 0 all the way till n equals 7. And after n equals 7, this becomes positive. So this part of the thinking will of course be numerical, and then you realize that the value of n has to be greater than 7. And since the question is asking the smallest integer, it's asking for the integer, not a decimal value. So since it's asking for an integer, the value at which the smallest integer will be 8. But of course, this solution has that drawback, that what if you can't see 2 to 7 there, and under pressure it's very likely that you might not be able to see it, because अगर इतना पता है कि हमेशा दिखेगा ही कुछ ना कुछ, तब तो ठीक भी है. But as I said, sometimes cubic equations can very well have non-integral roots. और उस केस में कैसे दिखेगा वो बहुत डिफिकल्ट है समझना. You might need to work a lot on the mathematical and algebraic aspect to be able to see that yourself. So I don't typically advocate you to go that direction, because वो करना ही है तो उससे अच्छा थोड़ा English पढ़ लो rather than doing so much on maths. So the other approach is to think of this thought simply numerically. कोई मैथमेटिक्स नहीं लगाते हैं, सिर्फ न्यूमेरिकली करते हैं. और यहाँ पे तुम्हारा नंबर क्रंचिंग एंड हाउ क्विकली यू कैन डू द कैलकुलेशंस इज गोइंग टू मैटर. सो एट n इज इक्वल टू 0, यू रियलाइज नाउ फॉर n पॉजिटिव, n 0 पे क्या होगा? दिस इज 0, दिस इज 0, दिस इज 0 एंड दिस इज नेगेटिव. सो द नंबर इज नेगेटिव. बट if I go for n is equal to negative, if I take n on the negative side, so what will happen is n cube will be negative, minus 11n square will be negative, plus 32n will also be negative, and minus 28 will also be negative. So on n on the negative side of 0 is not going to give me a solution here. It's always going to be negative. So I have to only look at the positive side of 0 for n here. So I can then start, what happens at n equals 1? n equals 1 पे ये 1 minus 11 plus 32 minus 28 है, तो it's negative. I don't need to calculate the value, it's negative. n equals 2 पे this becomes 8 minus 44 plus 64 minus 28, it becomes 0, but we have to make it positive. So the tendency comes to think of कि अगर ये cubic equation है and you know your roots and your this thing, तो ये 2 पे 0 आ रहा है तो इसके ऊपर positive 3 पे आना चाहिए. But before you conclude on 3, you should check, because the possibility of the graph is also this. The possibility of the graph is also this, that it just touches the x-axis and goes back, which is what happens in this case. So बहुत लोग ने इसको n2 पे 0 देख के 3 मार्क कर दिया कि 2 पे 0 है तो उसके बाद तो ऊपर चला जाएगा और 3 तक तो ऊपर ही रहेगा. But if you check at 3, you will be surprised to see there's 27 minus 99 plus 96 minus 28. So this is negative and this is also negative. You don't need to calculate the value, but you can see at 3 it is negative. So if you keep going then, at 4 it is 64 minus 176 plus 128 minus 28. So if you look in pairs, this is 100 positive and this is negative more than 100. So 4 पे भी नहीं आ रहा है. And in this situation, unless you want to take a jump, which is a risk, you will have to keep going with 5, 6, 7. तो क्या होगा इसको अगर 5, 6, 7 से ट्राई करोगे, तो जैसे 6 अगर ट्राई करते हैं, 216 minus 36 into 11, 396, you can see the numbers are going to keep getting more difficult for you. And if your number crunching skills are not so good, you will have a problem in this. So this part is minus 180 and this part is plus 164. So it is still negative at n is equal to 6. ठीक है. To this you can apply a little bit of mathematical logic, that ultimately these kind of graphs, ultimately once they cross 0, they'll always be above 0. They will not come back. And since n cube is positive, this n cube will, once it starts taking it above the x-axis, will always keep it above the x-axis. Finally, एक बार तो ऊपर जाके नीचे आता है, but ऊपर जाके नीचे तो बहुत evident है कि 2 से 3 में हो गया है. So we are just looking for this thing. So maybe you can skip a couple also. तो 6 पे positive अगर नहीं आया तो you can skip 5. और 7 जब देखोगे तो 343 minus 49 into 11 minus 539 plus 32 into 11 352 and minus 28, and you can see that this is plus 324, and have I made a mistake here? One sec. At 7, at n equals 7, this expression becomes 343. 49 into 11 is minus 439. That's okay. And 32n is 224. Sorry. Yeah, it's 224 and minus 28. So you can see that this is 196 overall and this part is minus 196. So you can see that at 7 it becomes 0. And then you realize that at 8 the value of n cube will become quite large and get there. But as I said, अगर तुम्हारा number crunching skills इतना अच्छा नहीं है and you're not so good at number crunching, this will take a lot of pain to solve it this way. Which is what brings me to what I think is the best approach in this question. And what that is, just see this. Couple of steps of algebra. Don't be scared of using algebra while solving these things. I take n common. This becomes n square minus 11n plus 32 minus 28. Right? This is what happens. And then if I want, for example, if I want to check this at n equals 1, this is 1, so my bracket has to be greater than 28 for this to be positive, because the expression is this value, the expression is this value, the value of n, into the bracket value minus 28 should be greater than 0. So instead of checking the values of n cube and n square and 32n, instead of checking that, I can just check with n equals 1. The only thing I am asking myself is this greater than 28? So at n equals 1, what will happen is 1 minus 10 plus 32. So 33 minus 10 is 23. It's not greater than 28. So n equals 1 पे negative आएगा ये. Now if I go to for n equals 2, the bracket has to be greater than 14 for minus 28 to still give me a greater than 0 solution. So with n equals 2, if I try this, 4 minus 22 plus 32, and I can see that the bracket is exactly 14. The bracket is exactly 14. So n equals 2 does not work here. So we keep going. And if I go to n equals 3, when n is 3 here, I want this to be more than 28 by 3. That means around, it should be more than 10, 9 point something. 9.3 is a bada hona chahiye. So if I go for 3, this becomes 9 minus 33 plus 32. So it's 41 minus 33. So it's only 8. And I wanted this value to be greater than 9. So this is not working. So you can see that with this structure, restructuring of the equation of the inequality, you can see that things have become easier to check. N equals 4, so you need this greater than 7, because you want this product to be greater than 28. You want the product to be more than 28. So n equals 4, this should be greater than 7. And you can do this orally. 16 plus 32, 48 minus 44. So it's only 4 that is coming in the bracket. So it doesn't work. Then you come to n equals 5. At 5, the target value of this is around 5.6. And more than that, if I try at 5, 25 plus 32, 57 minus 55. So it's only 2. So this value is below what we need or what we want here. This value is below what we require here in this question. So you can see that this is basically a much simpler way of doing this. So अगर हम लोग 6 को skip कर जाते हैं यहाँ पे और 7 पे check करते हैं, तो at n equals 7, I want this to be 4 plus, and this is 49, 32, that makes it 81, minus 77. So it does give me 4 exactly. So 7 पे 0 आ जाएगा और 8 पे आंसर आ जाएगा. So this is a guaranteed process, because this is not dependent on your ability or inability to make the numbers or to identify the numbers exactly in terms of the roots. You don't need that here in this question, right? Roots नहीं भी मिला तो भी ये निकल जाएगा solution. And you want those kind of situations which give you that. So CAT is going to be a lot about smart thinking. So any questions from you guys before I wind up, or we'll go for one more question? Let's look at the fourth one then. Gopal borrows X from Ankit at 8% annual interest. He then adds Y of his own money and lends X plus Y to Ishan at 10% annual interest. Now wait at this point and just make sense of what has happened. Ankit lends to Gopal X rupees at 8% interest. Right? Fine. Next, he then adds y of his own money and lends x plus y to Ishan at 10% annual interest. That means Gopal lends to Ishan x plus y at 10% annual interest. So if you think about this situation before you move on, you realize that Ishan will give Gopal interest which will be equal to 10% of x plus y at the end of the year. And Ishan will give Ankit interest which will be equal to 8% of x. This is the basic structure of the question. So the question further goes, at the end of the year, after returning Ankit's dues, the net interest retained by Gopal is the same as that accrued to Ankit. Now this is a crux statement in this question. At the end of the year, after returning Ankit's dues, so the net interest, now whenever you come across this kind of statement is the same, that means two numbers are equal. And what are the two numbers that are equal? The first number being talked about is the net interest retained by Gopal. So net interest retained by Gopal in this case is going to be 2% x plus 10% y, because the interest he is receiving is 10% of x plus y, and out of that he is giving away 8% of x. So this is the net interest retained by Gopal, and that is equal to, is the same as what? The interest accrued to Ankit. So how much interest is Ankit going to get? Ankit is going to get 8% of x as interest, and these two are equal. And that means, obviously you don't leave this equation at this point, and that means 6% x is equal to 10% y, which in mathematical terms basically means 0.06x is equal to 0.1 y, and that means x by y is equal to 5 by 3. This is the first step in this question. And that's the reaction that you get from this part of the question. Then you go to the next part. On the other hand, had Gopal lent x plus 2y to Ishan at 10%. Now they are changing what he lent. So what they are saying is that had Gopal lent x plus 2y to Ishan at 10%. So in the second situation, Gopal is lending x plus 2y to Ishan. So Ishan will give back interest as 10% of x plus 2y, which is 10% of x plus 10% of y, of 2y. Then the net interest retained by him would have increased by 150. So and Gopal is still going to give, because he is taking the same amount from Ankit. So in this case, what is the net interest retained by Gopal? So in this case, the net interest retained by Gopal is 2% x plus 20% of y. Why 20%? Because 10% of 2y is the same as 20% of y. This is a principle of equivalence that works in interest. 10% of 2y is the same as 20% of y, is the same as 1% of 20y, is the same as 200% of 0.1y, and so on. The percentage and the amount has to be, product has to be equal. So 2% of x and 20% of y, this is the net interest retained by Gopal. And what it says is that this interest is 150 more than the earlier interest. So from here to here, there's an increase of 150. That means this plus 150 is equal to that. So if you solve this, you will get the 2% x will cancel out, and what you will get is 10% of y is 150. If 10% of y is 150, the value of y becomes 1500. And if y is 1500, x becomes 2500. And what is the value of x plus y is the question, and that value will obviously be 4000. Right, so you could see this question. I mean, although these are 4 questions, you're already halfway through to 90 percentile on just 4 questions in CAT. And that's why I keep telling you that you have to make sure that your reactions, etc., are in place when you're solving your chapters, individual chapters. Right? So I think I'm over the time now. Just wanted to remind you guys that I am also available on Unacademy Plus. And on Unacademy Plus, I take sessions on data interpretation and logical reasoning mainly, but I also teach some quants with respect to the questions, question-based learning on quants. I bring courses from time to time on question-based learning through questions. And my upcoming courses on Unacademy Plus, just started a course called Logical Reasoning, Foundation Course for Logical Reasoning. And upcoming courses में मेरा Foundation for Data Interpretation आने वाला है in August first week. And I'm also doing a course on 150 must-do questions on quants. 150 must-do questions on quants. And this is a refresher course or a crash course kind of a thing, which is coming up for the November exam for this year. And if you want to join up Unacademy Plus, you can use my promo code. My promo code is Arun Sharma. You know the name. So my promo code is arun.yt, and this will give you a 10% discount. हाँ, ये मैंने बताया था. That's why I tell you अस्तित्व that you have to resolve everything once or twice at least. तब जाके वो second round में जो thoughts तुम समझे हो वो deeper embed होंगे, और second round of solving में जाके तुमको patterns दिखने लगेंगे. First round में pattern नहीं दिखेगा. Yes, Adesh, for CAT 2020, definitely a 6-month subscription will do. Subscriptions, of course, are available for 6 months, 1 month, 3 months, and also 12 months and 24 months. So CAT 2020 के लिए 6-month subscription will work, definitely. You can take that. Use this promo code if you want to do that. It will give you a 10% discount. And thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'll be back with more on Unacademy CAT-alyst. Lots of stuff coming up on Unacademy CAT-alyst for all of you, and of course I'm part of it. Thank you so much. Chalo, so I'll wind up then. See you, and have a safe weekend, and keep studying hard. Keep the faith. Things are going to get better in the world, and yeah, that's okay, Adesh. Number system से probability मत jump करो, पहले blocks 1, 2, 3 कर लो, arithmetic और number system कर लो पहले, उसके बाद 4 और 5 करना. Probability is one of the least important chapters from the CAT viewpoint, so to say. चलो, thank you so much.